Breaking the chains of false connection, whispered criticisms, conditional support, that subtle energy shift when your light shines too bright. You felt it, haven't you? That unsettling awareness that some relationships in your life aren't containers for growth. They're cages designed to keep you small. Today, I'm giving you permission to acknowledge what your intuition has been screaming all along. Not everyone celebrating with you is happy for you. Not everyone offering advice wants to see you succeed. Not everyone saying, "I love you," understands what love truly means. The hardest truth about human connection isn't that some people will hurt you intentionally. It's that many will harm you while believing they're helping. They'll project their insecurities onto your dreams. They'll disguise control as concern. They'll mistake possession for partnership. Psychology teaches us about trauma bonds, those powerful emotional attachments formed under conditions of intermittent reinforcement. When someone treats you wonderfully one day and dismisses you the next, your brain becomes addicted to the highs after the lows. You mistake intensity for intimacy. You confuse anxiety for attraction. How many times have you dimmed your light to make others comfortable? How often have you apologized for your success? When was the last time you censored your joy because you knew certain people couldn't genuinely celebrate it with you? The human connection paradox is this. We evolved as social creatures dependent on tribe acceptance for survival, yet authentic self-expression often threatens the very connections we're biologically wired to preserve. This creates an unconscious conflict, the primal fear of abandonment battling against the soul's need for authenticity. But here's what they don't tell you. Staying in relationships that require your diminishment isn't actually survival. It's a slow death of the spirit. Ancient wisdom traditions have always understood this. In Buddhism, they speak of near enemies, qualities that appear similar to spiritual virtues but actually undermine them. The near enemy of compassion is pity. The near enemy of love is attachment. And the near enemy of connection is dependency. The relationships holding you back right now aren't enemies in the traditional sense. They're near enemies. Familiar faces offering simulations of what you truly need while subtly draining your life force. The psychologist Carl Jung wrote about emotional vampirism long before pop psychology made it mainstream. He understood that some relationships operate through unconscious energy transfers where one person feeds off another's vitality. These dynamics aren't always obvious because they're wrapped in familiar packaging. Family ties, long-term friendships, romantic commitments. Look closely at the relationships that leave you feeling depleted rather than energized. Notice the people around whom you feel you must shrink. Pay attention to conversations after which you feel subtly diminished, confused, or questioning your reality. These are not coincidences. These are patterns revealing a fundamental truth. Not all connections are created equal, and some are destroying you from the inside out. Today, you stand at a crossroads. You can continue investing emotional capital in relationships, offering diminishing returns. You can keep trying to prove your worth to people incapable of seeing it. You can exhaust yourself attempting to heal those who find comfort in their wounds. Or you can choose yourself. Not selfishly, not callously, but courageously, with a profound understanding that your authentic self-expression isn't just a personal indulgence, but a gift to those capable of receiving it. The neuroscience of attachment shows us that we internalize our earliest relationship patterns as neural pathways that become our unconscious relationship blueprint. If you were raised to believe love meant earning approval through achievement, you may find yourself drawn to partners and friends who recreate this familiar dynamic, withholding genuine connection until you've jumped through enough hoops to deserve it. Liberation begins with recognition, with naming the patterns that have operated in shadow, with honoring the adaptive child who learned to survive by contorting themselves into acceptable shapes, while gently showing them a new way forward. That path isn't about dramatic confrontations or ultimatums. It's about subtle energy shifts, about moving your attention from those who drain you to those who sustain you, about redistributing your emotional resources toward connections that reflect back your wholeness rather than exploit your wounds. It's about establishing boundaries not as walls, but as sacred containers that define where you end and others begin. As the poet David Whyte beautifully expresses, a real conversation always contains an invitation. You are inviting another person to reveal herself or himself to you, to tell you who they are or what they want. When was the last time you felt truly invited to be yourself in your closest relationships? When did you last experience the sacred gift of being witnessed without judgment? How often do your interactions leave you feeling more connected to your essence rather than further from it? The most painful relationships aren't always the obviously abusive ones. Sometimes they're the connections that offer just enough nourishment to keep you coming back for crumbs when you deserve a feast. They're the friendships where support comes with invisible strings attached. The family bonds maintained through obligation rather than joy. The romantic partnerships that promise safety while slowly eroding your sense of self. Psychology calls this trauma bonding, when cyclical painful dynamics create powerful attachments that feel impossible to break. These relationships hijack your nervous system, creating biochemical dependencies that mimic addiction. The intermittent reinforcement, moments of connection followed by withdrawal, keeps you hooked, always hoping the next interaction will provide the genuine connection you crave. But here's the liberation awaiting on the other side of that pattern. When you stop expecting depth from shallow wells, you free yourself to find genuine sources of nourishment. When you release relationships based on projection and performance, you create space for connections grounded in presence and authenticity. This isn't about assigning blame or labeling others as toxic. It's about recognizing that some relationships have served their evolutionary purpose in your life. They were teachers disguised as partners, catalysts disguised as friends, mirrors reflecting parts of yourself that needed acknowledgement and healing. Thank them silently for their role in your story, and then give yourself permission to turn the page. The philosopher Martin Buber distinguished between I-it and I-thou relationships. In I-it dynamics, we relate to others as objects meant to fulfill our needs or reflect our self-image. In I-thou encounters, we meet another as a sacred subject, a complete universe of experience with whom we can share authentic presence. How many of your current relationships exist in the I-it realm, operating through unconscious contracts and expectations? How many offer the rare gift of I-thou connection, where you're free to evolve beyond the identity others have assigned you? The journey from false connection to authentic relationship begins with one crucial realization. Loneliness isn't the absence of people. It's the absence of meaningful connection. Many people surrounded by others experience profound isolation because those relationships lack the essential qualities that nourish the human spirit: safety, reciprocity, curiosity, and growth. Sometimes the bravest act of self-love is creating temporary solitude to break the addiction to relationships that diminish you. In that sacred space of aloneness, you discover that much of what you sought from others was waiting within you all along: validation, security, guidance, and love. This doesn't mean isolating yourself or rejecting human connection. It means becoming discerning about where you invest your relational energy. It means recognizing that authentic relationships aren't meant to complete you, but to complement the wholeness you've cultivated within. The psychologist John Bowlby, who pioneered attachment theory, understood that secure attachment isn't about dependency, but about having a safe base from which to explore the world. The healthiest connections don't constrain your growth. They provide the emotional security that makes expansion possible. Look around at your closest relationships and ask yourself honestly, do these connections form a cage or a launch pad? Do they reinforce your limitations or celebrate your evolution? Do they reflect your history or honor your becoming? Today, you have a choice that will ripple through every dimension of your existence. You can continue pouring your precious life energy into relationships that return emptiness disguised as love. You can keep contorting yourself to fit expectations that were never designed with your wholeness in mind. Or you can choose yourself, not from ego, but from essence, not from separation, but from the profound understanding that honoring your authentic nature is the greatest gift you can offer to yourself and others. Because self-love doesn't end relationships worth having. It ends relationships based on fantasy, projection, and mutual self-deception. It creates space for connections that don't require diminishment as the price of admission. If this message illuminated something you've been feeling but couldn't articulate, don't keep this revelation to yourself. Share it with someone walking to the shadowlands of false connection, someone giving themselves away piece by piece while wondering why they feel increasingly empty. Leave a comment below sharing which insight struck the deepest chord of recognition within you, which truth finally gave language to what your body has been trying to tell you all along. And if you're ready to continue this journey of psychological depth and emotional liberation, subscribe to this channel, because we're just beginning to unpack the invisible dynamics that shape our relationships, our choices, and our capacity for authentic connection. This isn't about becoming selfish or withdrawing from meaningful engagement with others. It's about becoming so deeply aligned with your truth that you naturally attract relationships that honor rather than exploit it. It's about developing such clear discernment that you can distinguish between connections that expand your spirit and those that contract it. Remember, the people meant to journey with you will celebrate your growth, not punish it. They'll witness your evolution with wonder, not resentment. They'll hold space for your authentic expression, not demand performance that affirms their narratives. Your life force is too precious to invest in relationships that return pain disguised as love. Your heart is too valuable to entrust to those who can't recognize its worth. Your time on this earth is too limited to spend it proving yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. The poet Rumi wrote, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." Perhaps the greatest barrier has been your willingness to accept counterfeit connection when the real thing seemed too much to hope for. Today marks the end of that compromise, and the beginning of a new standard for what you allow into the sacred space of your life. This isn't the end. It's the threshold of authentic becoming. Welcome to the other side of illusion. Welcome home to yourself.